Welcome back. My name is Kevin Ring, excited to be joined by Preston Diamond. And, Press, in 23 years of the Institute of Work Comp Professionals, we've continued to see and really, fight against this idea that comp is comp is comp, and there's nothing you can do about it. But we still hear from advisors routinely about their, competition that just wants to give a quote. Can I give you a quote? Can I give you a quote? And it's such a common practice, especially in workers' comp. But we've identified a number of things that bidding and quoting cannot help a business owner solve in their workers' comp program. And we've got 20 of them here. I thought we might spend our next couple of conversations talking through that list.
Great idea, Kev.
So where do we start?
Well, let's start with the logical one. Bidding and quoting has never allowed an agent to wrest control from the insurance company. That's not how you do it. So what should our clients do, or future clients do, to take control of their clients' workers' comp?
And that's, the vast majority of businesses that I know advisors work with or are entrepreneurial businesses. And, when someone, goes out, decides that they want to start their own business, it's often in large part because they want more control. But we expect business owners to accept that, they just have no control over their, insurance in general, and specifically here talking about workers' comp. And I think as we go through this list, it becomes clear how agents can help business owners take that control away from the insurance company and really have the employer in control of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it all starts. And certainly, bidding and quoting has never created a culture of zero injuries. And I think every business owner knows that injured employees cause problems in lots of different ways. So creating that culture of zero injuries, how do we do this?
It's a challenge, and there are safety experts out there in the world that can do a much better job teaching about how to build a safety culture. But I think about safety culture in a business in a couple of different ways. The first is what are the messages coming from management? Are they insisting that safety is job one, or are they, passing a message along something more like, get the work done no matter what, which always sacrifices safety? And then the other thing is, imagine a job site where everyone's supposed to be wearing a hard hat. And if a rank and file employee sees someone on the site not wearing a hard hat, do they feel empowered to call that person out and tell them to put their hard hat on? Or do they look the other way and feel that it's, the supervisor's job to tell them to be safe? And when those things are pulling in the right direction, a good safety culture is probably there in the business.
Great. Medical providers, obviously the heart of helping injured employees get back.
It's so easy for the wrong doctor to sink a workers' comp claim right from the jump. So it's important that agents and employers work together to find a skilled occupational medicine provider. Almost all states provide the right to the employer to direct the injured worker to the doctor they choose. But if an employer hasn't identified that great occupational doctor and they're just saying, oh, well, sorry you got hurt, just go to the doctor, then bad things are likely to happen.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And creating policies to reduce exaggerated employee injuries. So we're talking recovery at work here, correct?
Well, I think that's part of it, but I think more than policies. I think about it being a process. And it goes back to what I said a moment ago. If you ask an employer what happens when someone gets injured here and they shrug their shoulders and say, well, we just tell them to go to the doctor, I guess. And it's a lack of process. And the challenge when it comes to exaggerated injuries, to situations where injured workers can come back to work, but they work to extend those injuries. It's often difficult for employers to identify when bad things are happening because they don't have a process. And when you have a process with your injured employees and what the steps are supposed to be, then it becomes much easier to identify those things that are falling outside of the process, so that whether it's the agent, the employer, the insurance company can act on those things more aggressively. Where when an employer doesn't have a process, you don't know what should be happening and whether or not what's happening in this particular case is on target or not. And bidding and quoting isn't going to help you build that process.
Right. Nor is it going to help injured workers return to work. And so that's recovery at work process that we talked about a little bit here before the insurance company starts paying lost wages. So in our teaching, recovery at work is a big part. So share a little bit of insight into this one.
So recovery at work is part of this building an injury management process and knowing that things are working the way that they should be. But it's also a challenge for employers who will say, oh well, I don't have any light duty, or even some employers who will say they have a return to work program, but you look at their history of employee injuries and you see virtually no one ever returning to work until they're ready to go back into their full duty jobs. And building that process may involve having to show an employer the benefits that they are going to see when they can bring injured employees back to work. It's very easy for an employer to feel like, well, why should I bring them back to work and pay them? That's why I buy insurance. But it's up to the agent to be able to show that business owner how much better off they're going to be when they do it.
So we know that bidding and quoting is never reduced or prevented overcharges.
Well, right, because bidding and quoting doesn't take into account really anything other than class codes and payroll. So there's been no effort made to find out if any of that information is correct. So the overcharges haven't been found because they've never been looked for.
Yeah. You bring things down to be simple, and that's so great that just employers don't think of those kind of things, nor do agents maybe, if they are just selling workers' comp and not getting as deep as they should. So bidding and quoting is never found in fixed errors and recovered spent money, for sure.
Right. It goes right back to what I was saying before, is that we know that 75% of premium audits are incorrect, and while experience mod errors are uncommon, when you find them, they tend to be worth a fair amount of money. But if you aren't looking, then you're not going to find them.
Yeah. Classifications. How many?
So frequently incorrect.
Yep.
And there's a little sidebar here for Pennsylvania, Delaware, California, and to some extent New York, where the rating bureau is more involved in setting classifications. But even there, I was just talking to someone about a Pennsylvania risk in the last few days where the insurance company, I think, is making a classification error that might be breaking the rules up there. But, in almost every state, there's between 500 and 600 classifications that can be assigned to businesses. And businesses change, classifications change. Even if a classification was correct 5 years ago, that doesn't mean that it's still correct today. But most employers and most agents have no idea if the classifications on a policy are correct because they've made no effort to investigate what the classifications say. They look at the 5 or 6 word title of the class code on the deck sheet. They copy it down onto next year's application. And unless a premium auditor brings up that it's incorrect, it's never even considered. And class codes are, extensive. They are, for the most part, written in a very, detailed way. But if you want to know if a business is classified correctly, you've got to understand what the business does and what the codes say.
Deep, yeah, the heart of it. How do we stop attorneys from getting into our clients' wallets?
There's probably no foolproof way to do it, but the best defense is a process. All of these things, especially when it comes to injuries that we're talking about. If an injured worker goes to a great doctor and they are brought back to work, they're not sitting home watching attorneys' ads. They feel that they're being taken care of and not being taken advantage of, which is the message in so many attorneys' ads. And when you have that process, then it's going to be much less likely that an injured worker is going to get an attorney, for no reason. One of the more frustrating things in our work is when I look at a loss run and someone had a sprained ankle or a minor cut or something like that, and they get an attorney. There's a role for attorneys in this process, but it is not where we most frequently see it, which is in what should be simple and straightforward kind of cases.
Very good. So training employees how workers' comp benefits them by following the right processes.
Yeah, and I think this is another important piece in keeping, attorneys out of the process, because the vast majority of individuals who suffer an injury at work this year have never been hurt at work before. They have no idea what workers' comp provides. They probably know that workers' comp exists, but when they're sitting on the floor and they're injured and they're in pain, they're going to be afraid. They might worry that they can't afford the doctor's bills, or they can't afford being out of work, or they are going to get in trouble if they tell someone that they got injured. And if we can train employees before they get hurt about the fundamentals about how workers' comp works, about how that employer's process works with bringing them back to work, and how they're going to be taken care of, and the employer's responsibilities, but also their responsibilities in terms of reporting the injury and coming back to work and communicating. It goes a long way towards reducing that fear that an injured employee frequently feels, which will, hopefully in turn, reduce the likelihood that they feel the need to get an attorney, because they understand what's happening and they know they're being taken care of the way they should be.
And this all has to do with hiring, right, isn't it? Part of the hiring process, how comp works and how it benefits employees.
For sure, we think this conversation about how workers' compensation works makes a lot of sense to have during the employee onboarding process, when the employer is already talking to them about employer policies, the employee handbook, all of the things that that go into learning about your employer when you get a new job. And in our next episode, one of the many things we're going to talk about is how an employer can make sure they don't hire employees who aren't capable of doing the work. So I'm looking forward to that. Press, excited to have you here, and we'll see everyone in the next video.